tēnā koutou katoa. If you're watching this webinar, then congratulations on your decision to consider establishing cooperative business. These purpose-led organisations are some of our most successful organisations here in New Zealand. My name is Ros Henry. I'm the CEO of Cooperative Business New Zealand and have the pleasure of we are the peak body representing New Zealand's member-owned business community. Cooperative Business NZ was established in 1985, and we represent all sectors, so we're not sector specific. The fantastic thing about our member-owned business community is that it generates 18% of New Zealand's GDP, so a massive contributor and the real backbone of New Zealand's economy and our communities. In many cases, these businesses started out as small groups of individuals and businesses coming together to solve issues around scale and competition, to subsequently becoming some of our most successful and largest organisations. I've seen firsthand the immense opportunities that member-owned businesses offer to support individuals and groups that benefit their members along with their communities. This is especially important as we face into the challenges that we currently face, and many of the younger generation are questioning the value of the capitalist business model and its focus on profits and the knock-on impacts on our environments and the social construct. So they're looking to do things differently. To get co-ops and mutuals established requires a committed core group to build momentum across the business community to gain groundswell. But once they come to fruition, we see individuals and groups working collaboratively and collectively that have skin in the game leads to their enduring success. For today's webinar, I have the pleasure of being joined by David Goodman, partner of legal practice Anderson Lloyd, Sarah Trotman, CEO of Business Mentors NZ, and Lindsay Esler, CEO of Truckles NZ Association. To set the scene, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to Cooperative Business NZ and the work that we do. We are the peak body representing New Zealand's member-owned business community. Our vision is to be their voice across all sectors. Our role is to advocate and lobby on behalf of our members with government and key stakeholders. To enable this, we are members of Business NZ and partner with many other agencies, such as we have today, along with organisations such as Hort NZ, Retail NZ, the Meat Association industry, to get members' key messaging across. We provide a centralised knowledge base to support our members, such as the Startup Guide and the Constitution template that we're going to be covering off today. We work with other peak bodies across APEC nations, along with the International Cooperative Alliance, to share knowledge and insights. We offer professional development opportunities and education programs, in particular for your organisations around governance development. And we are working with a range of education institutions to ensure that there is education available on the co-op model, whether it be at tertiary level or also at the Institute of Directors level. We provide support services in conjunction with our corporate associate members, such as Anderson Lloyd, to assist establish cooperative businesses. And Cooperative Business NZ offers multiple opportunities for our members to network and engage on the key issues that you're currently facing, such as sustainability and ESG reporting requirements. One of the key attributes of cooperatives is the principle around collaboration. Cooperative Business NZ works to facilitate that on behalf of our members. And finally, we look to celebrate our members' successes through the annual business awards. Here you can see a selection of New Zealand's member-owned businesses. There are approximately 330 co-ops and mutuals across New Zealand, which is a very small number considering there's 500 million enterprises here in New Zealand. Often when I present this slide, many people are unaware of these businesses being cooperatives or mutuals, assuming that they are franchises or corporates. The breadth of industries that they sit across is significant. Plumbers, mechanics, technology, florists, banking, retail, construction, insurance, infrastructure. Many individuals, as I say, believe that they're only relevant to the agri sector. Sometimes I hear comments such as the business model being out of date or antiquated. There's not enough value being added before product leaves New Zealand's shores. These are all myths. They are a major domestic employer, driving competition for new markets and entrants, which is a key for free competition and a free economy. So you have a massive part to play in enabling New Zealand to operate effectively. Here in New Zealand, they mainly operate as commercial enterprises. However, internationally, the model is highly effective for social enterprises. Keep in mind that all of them started out as small enterprises like yourselves, whether it be groups of individuals or businesses coming together with a common goal. So your timing of establishing these businesses is ideal, given the concern around climate change and the pandemic having opened many people's eyes to the importance of moving away from businesses solely focused on short-term profit. Over COVID, pretty much all of these organisations were classified as essential. In particular, our food producers, along with those cooperatives providing wraparound support. COVID has, in some funny way, been the catalyst to enabling a better appreciation of the importance of these businesses to our economy. I'd just like to touch on the principles that make cooperatives and mutuals unique. And that all of you will be operating under these principles, whether they're here in New Zealand or internationally. And the primary focus is around members' needs. This requires their governors to focus on the longer-term sustainability of their operations versus maximising profit for today and tomorrow. As a result, they are far more resilient and likely to succeed where other businesses might fail. Ultimately, their purpose, through combined effort and creation of scale, they are able to be competitive. These common principles and values are intrinsic to the way that they do business and maintained and updated by the International Cooperative Alliance in conjunction with the United Nations. The Congress in Seoul in 2021 reviewed these principles, and it's expected that Principle 7, which notes around concern for community, is now going to be expanded out to incorporate sustainability. If you're aware of B Corp certification, you'll see that it's massively on the rise, with many international corporates recognising the need to be considered good corporate citizens. As cooperatives, you're already operating in this way given these driving principles. The other thing to note is that internationally, Indigenous communities successfully leverage the model, support improving lives and livelihoods of their people. Here in New Zealand, we're working very closely with Maori and Pacifica groups to look at opportunities to establish these businesses within their communities. As you go on your journey, these principles will be core to how you structure your enterprise. I've put this slide up here because it really does help to showcase the opportunities for how cooperatives are structured depending on their ownership. So there's the opportunities sitting around the consumer or supplier-owned co-ops and those members sitting on the boards of directors and with the management reporting to the members. Or you can have employee-owned cooperatives with a similar construct with their members sitting on the board of directors, but in the employee-owned construct, they are also part of the management team. So there's a lot of different ways that they can be constructed to support the business community. I've also just put up here in terms of the various bits of legislation that you can register under here in New Zealand. The focus of today will be the New Zealand Cooperatives Act. However, there is the Farmers Mutual Act, which was specifically established for Farmers Mutual Group. There's friendly societies and credit unions, which Southern Cross sits under the friendly societies as an example, and credit unions, you've got Unity and First Credit Union as examples. Industrial and Providence societies, we've got Rural Co and Farmers who operate underneath that piece of legislation, and building societies, Southern Building Society, SBS Bank sits under that piece of legislation. But as I say, today we'll be fundamentally focusing on the NZ Co-operative Act 1996. Just to provide you with some context, internationally, cooperative businesses are equivalent to the 5th largest economy globally, generating around $3 trillion US in revenue. They employ around 280 million people. That's about a tenth of the world's working population. And the ILO, which is the International Labour Organization, recognises that they provide the fundamental services and infrastructure that societies need to thrive on around generating wealth. So the ILO has actually made a range of recommendations to international governments around ensuring they continue to thrive and prosper. And we are working with New Zealand's government to make sure that that's the case here. As I said, the model is highly enduring, and internationally, New Zealand is recognised as being one of the most cooperative economies globally. We've got 6 of our cooperatives making it into the top 300 globally. So we are seen as one of the most cooperatives, as I say. Fonterra is the 6th largest co-op internationally. David will be touching on some of these along with Lindsay around the advantages of the co-op. So the new world opens up plenty of opportunities for these businesses. As you look across the list of advantages noted on the slide, I'm sure that there will be many that will be relevant to your organisation that you are looking to establish. If you can appeal to the hearts and minds of your members and gain their commitments, the commitment is wonderful to see these businesses go on to be highly successful, making such a huge impact upon their members' lives and livelihoods. The versatility of the model is one of the opportunities it presents. It can be applied to a variety of different structures, as shown on the right-hand side of the slide. Here you see producer co-ops, which tend to be applied to the primary industry sector. You've got consumer cooperatives, where goods and services are being purchased by the consumer that actually owns the co-op, whether that be housing, electricity, or products such as farmlands and rural co-op providing. We have worker-owned cooperatives here in New Zealand, and we're seeing a number being established as we talk today. Purchasing and supply chain cooperatives, if you think along the lines of Mitre 10 or ITM or BuildLink, they're good examples of those. Banking cooperatives and insurance and mutuals, it's very broad. Here in New Zealand, we don't have any housing co-ops, but we are seeing expansion in terms of platform-style co-ops being established. So I'm going to hand over at that point to David and let him take you through some further discussion points in terms of the legal requirements as you go around establishing your businesses.
Hello, my name is David Goodman. I'm a partner with Anderson Lloyd. It's a great privilege to be here today to talk to you about the new startup guide and cooperatives generally. Just firstly, a little bit about Anderson Lloyd. We're a national firm. We've been involved with cooperatives for quite some time. We act for some of the larger cooperatives, including Farmlands, Foodstuffs, and Mitre 10, but we also act for a whole range in different industries, whether it's big or small. We're leaders, particularly in the irrigation and agri sectors, which are quite cooperative intense. My particular interest is startup cooperatives. I enjoy working closely with nz.coop on advising members, existing members and potentially new members on the setting up their cooperative, what's involved, and the issues that they need to think about. So enough about us. So the Startup Guide is a great document which you'll find on nz.coop's website. It's usefully been broken down into bite-sized chunks, dealing with key questions. What is the cooperative? It's important to understand what a cooperative is. People have certain assumptions about what it is. They like the look and feel, but they don't always understand the nitty-gritty. So it's important to actually understand what a cooperative is and how it operates, I guess, in real life. What is the right model for your business? That's a separate section. There are different types of cooperatives. As Ros mentioned, there are different functional levels within a cooperative, so it's not one size fits all. And then probably where I get more involved is establishing the cooperative. What are the legal issues you need to think about in terms of constitution, raising capital, and actually forming a cooperative and making sure you've got everything nailed down. So from a legal perspective, differing types, establishing the cooperative and dealing with the constitution. So then that brings us probably to the new constitutional template, which I've developed with NZ Co-op and Lindsay Esner from Truffles Co-op, as a sort of a useful starting point for people looking to become a co-op. It's good to have a base template to look at, understand the key issues. With the template, we'll also have some notes to assist you, and setting up the key requirements, which include, when you're drafting that constitution, what is the cooperative activity, that you are providing? Is the co-op providing goods and services to members, or are the members providing goods or services to the co-op? What sort of cooperative is it? So that's an important first step to consider and ensure that you fall within the definition of a cooperative in that you have an actual cooperative activity. Cooperative is all about transactions occurring between the company and the transacting shareholders. In most cooperatives, all of the shareholders are transacting, but not necessarily all. There's a 60% criteria there, which we talk about. And then another important aspect is the shares in the cooperative. Cooperative strength is the number of shareholders and members it has, not necessarily the need to raise capital. And for this reason, there's an exception to the usual provision in the Companies Act, which shares must be issued at fair value. You can issue shares at a nominal value because a cooperative may want to make entry to the cooperative relatively affordable for its members, because its strength is increasing the number of members it has that it either provides services or goods to, or vice versa. The guide deals with all these key issues and also goes on to explain in some detail the registration process and how a co-op is registered first under the Companies Act as an ordinary company and then registers again under the Cooperative Companies Act if you want to become a cooperative under the Cooperative Companies Act. So having looked at the having decided you want to be a cooperative, looked at that template, it's still very important to get expert advice. And this is an area that we can assist you in, whether you're a new cooperative or whether you are updating your existing constitution. It's important to, if you are an existing one, it's important to continue review and updating your constitution to keep up with changes in the law and the requirements of the co-op and its business. So when looking and drafting that constitution, it's not really a matter of just taking the template. It'll be a good start and then painting by numbers. You really need to get expert advice on key issues. Again, the principal activity, what is it? Who is a transacting shareholder? Who are going to be shareholders in the company? What are the requirements for them to register? Is there a minimum amount of goods or services that they're going to provide, or business that we're going to do with the shareholder for them to become a transacting shareholder? The lifeblood of a co-op is its members, and we have to be relatively particular about the members we take on. Otherwise, there's going to be no value transacted or not as much as we would like, and that will affect the survivability of the co-op. The different classes of shares, there may be one class, just member shares, providing goods or services, or the other way around through your services agreement, or there could be a number of classes of shares. It could be transacting shareholders, non-transacting shareholders, capital raising ones, redeemable ones. It can become, some cooperatives' capital structures are necessarily very complex. Others are quite simple. So we need to think about the different classes and where we go from there. A key document apart from the Constitution, almost as important, will be the supply or service agreement. So all cooperatives, as I said, are providing goods or services, or the other way. So there's often a key agreement, a service agreement. With irrigation companies, it's the water supply agreement. With Fonterra, it's milk supply agreement. With I dare say Lindsay with truffles has got his own, there's a supply agreement or service agreement there, that the requirements around that agreement are key. And one of the advantages of a cooperative is under the Cooperative Companies Act, there are special provisions to allow you to enforce the provisions of that agreement more so than you might be able to with a simple ordinary company under the Companies Act 1993. So that is another critical document that you'll need advice on and need to get right. What are the maximum and minimum shareholdings? Minimum, one share might not be enough. It's not worth the administrative hassle. So often there's a minimum requirement. And equally, there may be a maximum one. It may not be in the cooperative's best interest to have someone who has a majority share or too large a shareholding in the co-op. That would distort the community aspect of it. And so often there is sometimes maximum provisions as well. Governance provisions. Cooperative will necessarily be have a broad range of shareholders. It's not going to be closely held like a family company. There could be well over 100 shareholders. So they are inherently democratic. So it'd be important to have quite sophisticated provisions in terms of the voting on or off the appointment of directors and also the input of shareholders. And lastly, an issue that is often overlooked is capital raising. People wanting to set up a cooperative overlook the need for early capital to fund it, to get it up and going, but also how they can do that cost effectively without falling foul of the Financial Markets Conduct Act, or the FMCA for short. The last thing someone wants to do with just setting up a cooperative is to have the cost and burden of a full-blown product disclosure statement or what we used to call a prospectus in the early days. So there are ways of kind of surveying or understanding the support from the prospective membership that you can obtain through exceptions under the Act without having to commit to too much time and cost initially. And then the process can evolve through various other exclusions. And maybe one day, ultimately, you will need to do a product disclosure statement, but it's not something that you would need or want to do straight off the bat. And that's really it from me. Contact details are there. Very happy to take calls and discuss some of the comments we've made and the issues that you'll need to consider when establishing a cooperative. Thank you very much.
Firstly, congratulations to you and your wonderful team for the great work that you do in supporting New Zealand's co-ops, and particularly actually your very insightful and interesting startup guide for co-ops. I thought that was really interesting. So my name is Sarah Trotman, Chief Executive of Business Mentors, a wonderful organisation that's been in existence for over 32 years now. We have provided a mentoring program through 1,800 volunteers, and we have an attrition rate of around about 5% each year of mentors that might be retiring from the mentoring service, etc. So, but on balance, anything between sort of 1,800 and 2,000 mentors at any one time over that 32 years has provided mentoring services and support to over 80,000 small business owners. So a really important service and support network for small business owners in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Now, our mentors are gifting their time. There is a registration fee of $295 per annum. And that gives you the opportunity, you as a business owner, the opportunity to engage with that mentor over a period of 12 months. And a mentor will typically spend about 2 hours in the first month engaging with the business owner, trying to unpack what it is that the business owner actually thinks they need, because often business owners will think that they just need to double their turnover and all their problems would go away, or address their marketing, but often there are just some underlying issues in the business, and so general management is a particular area of expertise that is often underrated by business owners, and that's actually what's needed. So really interesting as we unpack in the initial call with business owners that contact us for a mentor, trying to understand exactly what it is that they need. Now, when COVID hit, it was very interesting to watch our mentors shifting their mentoring into the virtual world. And what that's done is it has enabled business owners to actually be connected with the very best mentor for them, whether they're in the same location as the business owner or not. So there's a lot of virtual mentoring. Probably about 40% of our mentoring now is actually done virtually, which, as I say, means that the business owner can find the perfect mentor for them, whether it's identifying a particular life stage of the business, whether it's identifying a particular area of expertise that the mentor has, or a particular set of experience within a certain sector. So that virtual opportunity is incredibly interesting now. Just if I can give you an example of that, we've recently launched a thing called Choose a Mentor. So that for the first time in 32 years, the business owner themselves can shortlist a range of mentors that best fits the support that they are looking for. And we've got a team spread right across the country that do a double check just before that mentor match is actually made. And the wonderful example that I've got for you is that there was a chap that had a turnover of $1 million in Nelson. He worked in construction, and he matched himself with another business owner that has a turnover also in construction of about 5 million based in Upper Hutt in Wellington. So a really nice connection there, and able to happen because of the opportunity for virtual mentoring. So the role of a mentor is really important for me to unpack for you, and that's really somebody that has walked in your shoes before you. So they're somebody that will walk alongside you in your business journey. They won't roll up their sleeves and do the work for you. That is not the role of a mentor. They're a sounding board, a guide, somebody to bounce some ideas off, somebody perhaps to tap into that might be happy to open up their networks in a particular sector. And you can expect generally after the first initial meeting, about an hour a month over 12 months. And of course, there's always opportunities for a secondary mentor. If you feel that you need expertise in marketing, but also in finance, then we can find a secondary mentor that can work alongside that primary mentor as well. We're very proud of the quality of the mentoring service that Business Mentors provides. So we have an NPS. In fact, I was just looking at the most recent NPS for the Auckland region, which is 85 plus, and that's almost unheard of. Just for context, a net promoter score, I think all of the banks now are in the negative. So that's a real credit to our 1,800 mentors who are across the country providing support to the nation's small business owners. We monitor our service because, as you can imagine, it's not just about the sector experience, the life stage of a business experience, or the expertise of a particular area of business, whether it's finance, marketing, strategy, HR, regardless. It's also about those soft skills. So the soft skills are incredibly important in a mentoring relationship. So we make sure that we monitor the match. So we do ask our mentees, for want of a better word, the business owner that's using the mentoring service, to provide some feedback to us at 30 days, just to make sure we've got the match right, at 90 days, once the relationship is established, again a month later at 120 days, and then at 11 months just before the mentoring relationship closes off. And of course, the business owner may choose to take on another year of mentoring by paying another $295 and working with the same mentor again. We've had certainly many mentee-mentor relationships that have lasted for many years, or they may choose to go with a new mentor and get a fresh perspective on their business. So that's Business Mentors in a nutshell. We are always looking for more mentors. If you think that you've got the expertise to join us as one of those 1,800 mentors. And it's very interesting, actually, whenever I approach people to be a mentor, they often say, oh, I'm not sure what I would have to offer. But it's not until they actually do a deep dive into the mentor training. So we run a variety of mentor training for new mentors and then established mentors. And they're virtual sessions that last for 2 hours, and people can get a sense of how they might be able to contribute to a business owner they've never met before. And you will find that actually it's an incredibly rewarding experience. When we celebrated our 30 years, the Board of Business Mentors decided that they would recognise a number of long-standing mentors with the prestigious Business Mentors Pin of Recognition. And the constant feedback that we get when we present these awards and pins of recognition to the mentors is that it's just such a hugely rewarding experience. And I'm just going to close with my favourite story about a mentor who is 50 odd years old. He has retired, he's sold his business, he's living in his batch in Matapori, and he has over 20 mentoring assignments. And I said to him, why on earth are you doing this in your retirement? And he said, do you know what? There's a limit to the number of weeks I can spend at the batch or on the boat. And he said, this just keeps me connected with what's current right across business. And he just meets so many interesting business owners, startup entrepreneurs, and then the third area that we provide mentoring is in the not-for-profit space. So that's us in a nutshell. The best place to find more information about Business Mentors is, of course, on our website, which is businessmentors.org.nz. And there's an 0800 number there. We would absolutely love to hear from you if you've got any questions about how a business owner might engage with a mentor and get support from one of those 1,800 mentors around the country.
So my name's Lindsay Esler. I'm an ex-lawyer and ex-food business owner. And for about 3 years, I've been the CEO of the New Zealand Truffle Association, which is the national industry body for truffle growers and people dealing in truffles in New Zealand. In the course of that work, I have been tasked with setting up a truffle marketing cooperative, which is now up and running, just about to finish the second season for trading. I guess we were the first ones to use the more or less the constitution template, so haven't had any issues with that so far. Now, just a bit of background on truffles. They're a very tricky product because they are highly perishable and extremely difficult to grow, and you don't know whether you're going to get a crop from one year to the next. So New Zealand first set up the truffle industry about 30 years ago. There was a scientist, Dr. Ian Hall, was the first person in the Southern Hemisphere to grow truffles. He's actually been supporting the cooperative, although he's not actually a grower, so he's not a member. The Australians, after that, really picked up the ball and ran with it. They're exporting about 30 tonnes of truffles a year, as far as we know. New Zealand has not really got into exporting yet. It's been a sort of quite, not divisive, but divided kind of industry in terms of people just not communicating and not really working together very much on their marketing, each person trying to go out with their basket and go around the restaurants and sell truffles, and not much work done on exporting, which is extremely difficult from an administrative perspective. So today I'm just going to do a bit of a look back at what we thought and why we thought it and how it's actually panned out in real life. So these on this slide are what I had identified as potential advantages of setting up a cooperative in the truffle sector. Very much we've found from the experience with the truffle cooperative that having the continuity and assured volume of supply to larger customers, of which we've only got a couple so far, has been quite a good selling point. So we can say, yep, truffles, there's erratic production, but we've got coverage for quite a big, lots of different regions in New Zealand. So if it's doing well in one region and not in others, we can always source the product for you and have a reliable supply. So we have found that has actually come to pass as we expected. Marketing, so far we haven't done that much of it, although we have found that customers and potential customers are quite responsive to an approach on behalf of a cooperative. I think that the mere fact that it's a cooperative selling to them can be actually quite a good selling point. Obviously, standardization and centralization. We've done some work on packaging and storage and transport, which had previously been handled individually by different growers with differing outcomes. That's actually proved to be a really good advantage of the co-op so far. We're going to do more work on that. As yet, for the fourth point, establishing a viable export industry, definitely having a co-op and the extra resources available is going to be a massive advantage. There are a couple of major players who are exporting from New Zealand now, but on an individual basis. But probably that's the only ones that are going to be able to do it and have the resources to do that exporting on their own account. So potentially we think exporting is going to be best done through a cooperative. Right. The strategic need for cooperative. Again, this is needs that I'd identified before the co-op was set up. This is all continued to actually hold true. There's quite a difficult year this year with all the rain, but there has been a lot of production in New Zealand, just in different regions from previously. So the restaurants that want truffles have basically been getting them. There's been multiple visits to some restaurants, I gather, from different people trying to sell truffles. So I think that's a sign of market saturation. So hopefully the co-op will be the way to avoid that duplication of effort and pestering customers with individual sales pitches. We've also found the members of the cooperative very grateful for the fact that they don't need to do product marketing anymore. That's done centrally through the cooperative. We haven't actually as yet hired a separate marketing person. That's work's been done by the company secretary. We got a mobile phone number and a website and an online shop. We probably will be at the point within a year or two we need to get a specialist marketing employee. But as of yesterday, I think they'd sold 99% of all of the product which was available for sale through the co-op members. So I think that's a very successful result. Very happy with that. Now, the fundamentals of a co-op. Again, this was just trying to extrapolate what the likely sort of commonalities of would be. We have found that since the truffle growers have all got very, very similar interests and they're all fairly similar size, that they really do share a common goal and common interest. So that's actually been really helpful. We haven't got massive producers and smaller producers, and we haven't had to deal with potential conflicts that might arise as a result of that. So as of now, not all of the members have actually supplied truffle because they maybe more recently planted truffier, but the ones that have seem to be happy with the results and the the ones that are still waiting for their trees to come into production obviously got an example of a successful business to see through other members. We've made some mistakes, I think, in terms mostly of setting up administration. We probably went into a bit too much detail with supply agreements and things like that. So we made a summary. So up till now, the trading of the members with the cooperative, the supply of truffle into the cooperative is actually based on a one-page document, just to make it all easy. We hold in reserve a really comprehensive supply agreement for the future. So from the legal and accounting perspective, obviously now there will be a template for your constitution, which is possibly the most difficult and daunting document which all cooperatives need to have. As David's mentioned, I don't think you will be able to do this as a startup cooperative to draft all your documents and get yourselves incorporated, but it will depend on what resources you have. It might pay to ask amongst potential members to see if there's any lawyers, accountants who could probably take you quite a long way down the path of getting set up before you need to get the advice on compliance, which might be specific to your industry, like Food Act registration for truffles, that kind of thing. Also specialist advice on intellectual property and branding. It's something, as an ex-intellectual property lawyer, I'd recommend to get done. Really, one of the first priorities, you need to make sure you've got your trading name protected so that your reputation will accrue to the benefit of your marketing in the future. Lawyers will help you to identify legal risks that you might have. We were fortunate enough to find accountants from that perspective. We got someone in a small regional town that was known to one of the members, found the hourly rate was about half of what it would have been if it had been an accountant from a larger town, and also very familiar with the concerns that a small agricultural-based, horticultural-based startup might have. So we were very happy with the accountant we chose for that. Now this is how we set out to set up the co-op. Just looking back at whether we'd do anything differently. So we decided the broad structure of the co-op, that's fairly basic. We did prepare a business plan that was done by a small group of the potential directors, and who did in fact become the inaugural board. It was more detailed than we needed to have, and because we were going into the unknown in effectively a new industry, we probably put in too much detail. Anyway, it wasn't wasted because I think it focused people's attention on what they might be prioritizing and what needed to be done. In terms of funding, we took $1,000 from each of the 21 members, I think it was, that signed up. There's now about 30. Basically, very little of that capital has been spent. So the company secretary set up the website, did quite a good job. We paid a photographer to get professional photographs taken. The accountant deferred his first bill till after the first year of trading. So really, we didn't need to dip into the capital very much at all, but I don't think that would be a typical situation. I think normally you'd be paying quite a bit of money up front for the various things, just simply that we had the expertise on tap within the co-op members to sort of get things going. So as I mentioned, we started trading a couple of years ago. So this is just finishing the second season. Truffles are available for about 2 months each year in the winter time, and the 2023 season is just wrapping up. We do have very disparate location of the members, so it range from Otago right up to Waikato. they have never met, actually, our truffle co-op members. A few of them know each other, but that's only within regions. So it's been quite interesting trying to keep people up to date on that. We've had specific Zoom meetings, just basically informative rather than discussions, people attending to just let the directors do their thing because they're very motivated. And every so often a written communication, like an email is sent out, like an update on how the season's progressing and that kind of thing. So our working group became the provisional directors, and they are very motivated. There's 3 of them doing an excellent job so far. Just struggling to, right, okay, the next slide. So the milestones that we went through, I think getting the website and the online shop set up took quite a while, but once that was done, we really felt like we had a business. So commencing trading middle of last year, having new members signing up and getting a bit of a buzz in the industry is really good. Just about to make a payout, an interim payout to the cooperative members for the 2023 season. And for the future, looking forward to basically more of the same. I think it's probably fair to say that the cooperative has done pretty much what we expected. The growers are happy with it. More members are joining. This season was larger than the last. Probably the most positive thing from the point of view of the board would be that taking on the first employee and getting some professional marketing done. But I think we can say it's been a little bit of a success story all in all. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for the fantastic participation in terms of telling co-op story and how to get these businesses off the ground. I guess what I was hearing is, it's really about the storytelling of being a co-op and how this can benefit the business itself and the international audience if it's an exporting organisation. Just a couple of questions that I have, and either one of you may be able to answer this. So what are the tax benefits of being a co-op? David, you might like to answer that.
So, but many co-ops are based around an ability to provide rebates to their members. The tax advantage of that is that profit rebated reduces the taxable profit within the co-op's hands. So if they rebate all the profit, there's no profit to be taxed. The flip side, of course, is the rebate becomes taxable income in their members' hands. But looking at purely from the co-op's perspective, that is a tax advantage. The primary driver, though, for rebates is a way of rewarding members or incentivizing certain behaviours. So you may calculate the rebate not simply in terms of capital investment, which is probably nominal in any event. It will be a reward for patronage or throughput of the goods or services that the co-op is providing. So the rebate often isn't just a proportional share of profit. It is often linked to throughput or patronage.
And I guess, Lindsay, you were just mentioning that you just in the process of putting your first rebate out to members. How's that playing out for you in terms of the tax implications?
Not something which I'm personally looking at, thank goodness, being innumerate. I understand that this year the whole of the trading profit will be just rebated back to those members, proportionate to the amount of supply that they've given to the co-op. I don't think there's any intention to be holding back. So try and keep it simple, at least for the time being.
I think that's right. A lot of co-ops who don't necessarily have a rebate structure or incentive scheme will simply look to be operated on a cost recovery basis. So by the time you look at depreciation, etc., the ideal result is there's not a lot of taxable profit to be taxed.
Yeah, and I guess one of the criticisms of co-ops is making sure that your board of directors is reinvesting enough back into innovation and research and development for the future generations coming through. So it's getting that balance right.
That's absolutely right. And, you know, a lot of co-ops are rendering charges to, you know, to either to gather revenue for CapEx, for example. They run the risk of creating a taxable profit. So there's a lot of advice in terms of alignment with depreciation with CapEx, so that the curves run together, if you like, and taxable profit is minimised.
The other question I was going to ask is around the small co-ops exemption scheme. We didn't touch on that. David, have you got any comments on that in terms of how that can be used for our startups?
Yeah, I think it's pretty useful for the startups in particular. They've just raised the levels from, I think, 5,000 to 10,000 an individual member's investment, and 5 million for turnover of the co-op itself. The two thresholds work in tandem, but can relate to different exempt parts of either the financial reporting requirements or requirements under the Financial Market Conduct Act. The most, I suppose, useful part of that exemption is that if each individual member is investing less than $10,000, so their total share parcel, if you like, is less than 10,000, then there's significant carve out in terms of the requirements, disclosure requirements under the FMCA. Long story short, you're not going to need a full prospectus. So that is a huge plus. On the downside is that for many people or many co-ops, $10,000 isn't a lot of money. For a small agri co-op, you know, who are looking just for members, a nominal investment initially, whether it's Lindsay's truffle co-op, $1,000, or another one, $5,000, great. But for a lot of the other co-ops, the capital investment is significant, such as irrigation companies, for example, where farmers could be investing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So yeah, great exemption, but its use is limited to relatively small and startup ones, I would have thought.
Yeah, that's definitely our experience, is that our small to medium-sized co-ops have benefited from that exemption. Mm-hmm. And just for the audience, that exemption is valid for the next 5 years. So it will be reviewed again in 5-year timeframe. Lindsay, I don't know if that was relevant. Did you apply for that under establishing the Truffles Co-op?
No, we didn't need to. We're beneath the threshold, so it wasn't a worry for us, thank goodness.
Yes, you would have been well below the existing one. The other thing to note is that's not the only exemption. There are additional what we call exclusions under the FMCA, which are also of assistance, like small companies exclusion. There's various other exclusions which we rely on when advising companies, which might be medium-sized, but a combination of the exclusions means that just because you're over $10,000 per individual doesn't mean that you're straight into product disclosure country and significant expense. There are other exclusions to be distinguished from an exemption that can be relied on to avoid that initial upfront cost. And one thing we do is we recommend to clients who are setting up co-ops to survey members. So there's an ability to survey members, as long as you make it clear that you're not looking for money, to say, look, you know, we're going to set up this cooperative. This is what it's going to cost. We're going to do this and this. You know, if we offered you shares at X price and the certain benefits of A, B, C, and D came with that, would you be interested? And please sign and return the survey confirming your interest, no money required. So that's an oversimplification, but there's a way of, I guess, soliciting, if you like, interest without committing yourself to significant legal and accounting cost, whether it be for a PDS or for navigating the various exclusions. So it's quite a useful tool.
So that's great. And one of the things that we haven't sort of touched on is that 40%, up to 40% of investment can come from non-transacting members. Based on my experience in New Zealand, we don't have any co-ops that have got non-transacting members as part of the shareholding. And also, it's very challenging to make sure that you've got shareholders who are philosophically aligned with what the co-op's there to achieve. Internationally, we see quite a lot of public-private partnerships operating in that space, which seem to have been quite successful. Have either of you got any comment to make on that?
Yes, certainly I have. I think we call them hybrids, combination of transacting shareholders and non-transacting. I think there may be one or two possibly in the Hawke's Bay, maybe one of the kiwi fruit ones. But the difficulty is, as you point out, is the kind of the clash of cultures. So there is often there's a tension between the cooperative shareholders who are looking for, I guess, services, whether it be processing, whatever, and they see the rebate as sort of the icing on the cake, and those pure investors who are actually looking for a return on their capital. So the tension is that the cooperative people don't want to make a profit; they just want cheap services. The investors want a reasonable return, so they want the services to be charged out more at a market rate to create a profit, so they can then receive a dividend. So there's a tension there between the two, and they don't necessarily sit well together. So I think they do exist in New Zealand, but I think you're right. I don't think there are many, and there's a cultural tension there that's sometimes difficult to reconcile.
No, that's great. Lindsay, have you got anything else to add before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I think on that same point, probably the truffle growers would consider using that model of bringing in outside investors only if there was a really significant capital expense, like a processing plant or something like that. But I think just difficult for a small co-op in practice to run or to sort of liaise with what's effectively another business in the midst of it, which is not core to the whole reason the co-op was set up. So I think it's not just the complexity of it; it's just really difficult to try and reconcile how that fits into the whole structure.
I certainly agree with that. The other alternative is some of the larger co-ops do is they have, I guess, capital notes, so they'll issue debt, if you like, to their members with a return. And that's probably easier to manage than having different classes of shareholders with different drivers. Just your existing transacting shareholders might, reinvest some money at a rate which is better than a deposit rate and not as high as the bank rate. So that's one vehicle that is sometimes used for capital projects.
No, that's great. I will thank you very much, everyone, for your time and being part of this conversation. I guess the key message coming through is, the businesses aren't straightforward in terms of being established. It's not like going to the company's office and registering an organisation, which is fairly straightforward. However, the benefits of the business once they are established are significant. You've got individuals who've got skin in the game. They build that loyalty, they build that community spirit. And so, as I said, Cooperative Business New Zealand's here to support you in your journey, and we look forward to working with you.